So let's get into the Brewers' top prospects, Jack. This is a talented system at the top. I feel like it's common to say top heavy, and people like to say that about a lot of different systems. Every system's going to be top heavy, but this one is probably a little bit more top heavy than others, and we'll kind of get into that. We're not going to do as much on the names to watch because there's really just not that many names to watch that we loved. It was honestly hard to fully build out a top 15. So we really built a top 10 and then highlighted some names to watch. I'm going to hit on a couple names. You're going to hit on a couple names, and then we're going to jump into the top 10 prospects for the Milwaukee Brewers. One name to watch that I wanted to highlight is Freddie Zamora, because he's a shortstop who he's had a tough go in his professional career thus far, from the respect that he had a chance to play himself into day one consideration when he was at the University of Miami. Sure-handed shortstop, was swinging it well, and unfortunately, he tore his ACL in practice, and that really hurt him. He still was able to go early and still actually was a day one guy, went second round, 53rd overall in the 2020 draft, but it was just kind of a unfortunate slew of circumstances there. Then he got hurt again last year. I should mention he put up a great year in 2021 between low A and high A, absolutely mashed between those two levels, and is a slick defender at short. Then was hurt last year, only played 24 games and struggled. Now he's back at Double A, 117 WRC plus, not something you're writing home about, but again, it's the Southern League. It's tough to play there. He has 7 stolen bases, 5 home runs, and he's a very good defender. He's a plus defender at shortstop. So if he's a slightly above average bat and a plus defender, for me, that's a potential big leaguer, a potential big league utility piece. He adds above average wheels. I think this is a solid prospect at 24 years old. And I do believe Zamora is going to give you big league time and be a good bench piece that if you have to plug him in as an everyday guy, there's a shot he might hit enough. If not, he's a good glove first bench option. Freddie Zamora is a solid prospect outside of the top 10.
Yeah, he's probably a subdued version of Bryce Terang, right? Mm-hmm. What they got from Terang, level it down a bit, and then you got Freddie Zamora.
Yes.
I love it. Okay, I've got, I think, 5 names that I want to run through here.
Yeah.
First one is a name that, could sound a little gimmicky, but Noah Campbell. And I know a lot of people remember Noah Campbell in 2021 as the guy that played all 9 positions in a game for the Carolina Mudcats. He's kind of that guy. He's the position player pitching. But this guy's been good at every stop. He's a 780 OPS guy. He's always going to hit high 200s. He's always going to have a high on base in the 380 to 400 range. And the defensive versatility, it's not just a gimmick. This guy can play first, third, second, left, right. He's dabbled in center. He played short in 2021. He can play anywhere. This guy, if he truly continues this, he's in AAA Nashville now. I think he can be a utility guy. And it's hey, wherever you need somebody, as long as it's not catcher or pitcher, this is your guy.
It's weird, Ben, because I agree with everything you said. This is a thin system, and they've given him a little bit of the org guy treatment over the last 2 years.
Which they shouldn't be doing. He's the best org guy in baseball, if that's the case.
And I think he's starting to hit his way out of that designation, especially when you look at the rest of this system. Also, it's a small sample size, but I need to continue to watch these Double-A Southern League hitters as they go up to Triple and see what changes. He was putting up good numbers through his first 33 games in the Southern League. 4 home runs, 139 WRC plus, but he was striking out 26% of the time. Now through his first 8 games in AAA, striking out just 17% of the time. Small sample size, but interesting note there. See if a lot of guys see their strikeout rate drop pretty significantly when they go from the tacked ball league to AAA, which should never be the case. But you look at the numbers through 41 games this year, he's been great. And at the end of the day, it seems like he's kind of playing his way out of org guy situation. There's guys that they wanted to get more consistent at bats in Double-A, so they bump him up to Triple and challenge him. And so far, he's risen to the occasion. So Noah Campbell, to me, is in that 10 to 15 range as well, even though I think Fangraphs just put out their top 40 prospects, and Campbell wasn't one of them. I was surprised to see that. He just turned 24. He's a switch hitter with all of the things that you brought to the table there. In regards to Campbell, he hits the ball hard too, 104 mile per hour, 90th percentile. I think this guy could absolutely be a utility piece at the big league level with the way he can play all over the diamond as well.
But again, I don't think the industry likes him because he's been stamped as that org guy. So if there's
Mhm.
somebody that's going to lead the charge to get Noah Campbell out of that designation, it'll be Aram and Jack on the call up.
Yeah.
He was also the best hitter on the Cape in 2018. So I've
Mhm.
always kept tabs on Noah Campbell. He OPS'd over 1,000 in 32 games. The guy hit 365. I was
Yeah.
so impressed. He was a shortened draft casualty. He was at South Carolina. He was in the Mervis cut, right? He was 6th round pick, probably 7th round pick, and it was a 5-round draft. So Campbell, signs as an undrafted free agent and goes.
By the way, to totally miss this doubleheader yesterday, he in the second game of the doubleheader went 3 for 4 with 2 bombs in AAA, 6 RBI.
There you go.
So that'll take care of the designation of org guy, I think.
There you go. Yeah, and then a couple other young guys that I've got for you. I'll work through them quickly. Daniel Guiarte is a guy that has experience at short, third, and second. He's on the IL right now, but he's 19 years old in low A. 69 games between the complex last year and low A this year, hitting .299 with an OBP over 400, and he's got 24 backs. He's got no pop, yet to hit his first pro home run, but he's fast. He can play 3 spots in the infield. That's impressive. Edwin Jimenez, a right-handed arm, 21 years old, great slider that we were looking at. Fastball, not where it needs to be yet, but the slider is probably good enough to carry him to at least a bullpen.
No doubt. Real quick to chime in on that, as only guy I'll probably add much on. He throws a slider more than his fastball. I think he's probably going to end up being a reliever, but I do think that that's going to get him to a big league bullpen. He's 6'4". It's a tough release point. He throws that slider a ton, lands it for a strike 72% of the time, and opponents are hitting 132 against it with a 51% K rate. That pitch will get him to a pen.
Yep. And then a couple of 20-year-old right-handers in low A, Patricio Aquino, Dominican right-hander, and then Alexander Valecio, who I think is from Nicaragua. But those are both 20-year-old guys with better command than you would expect. And the counting stats look great for them. And those are guys with, a time on their side, 20 years old, and they're excelling in low A. Valecio is on the IL right now, but it's a 7-day. It's not a 60-day. So we'll see how those guys continue to progress.
Aquino, another really good slider, but I think more potential with the fastball and the changeup. So just turned 20, definitely a name to watch. The Brewers do kind of well in Nicaragua, which is interesting, which kind of leads us into number 10 here, as those who are watching on YouTube will be able to see us kind of pull up some of the video, pull up some of the write-ups. And if those who are listening, you can also follow along on the write-ups with video with the link in the podcast description. So check that out for sure. But we go right to number 10, who is Carlos Rodriguez, right-handed pitching prospect in Double-A. Out in Nicaragua, he actually pitched for Nicaragua in the World Baseball Classic and was really impressive. It rose to the occasion on a big-time challenge, and that was what really put him on my radar. You can see in the video here, for those who are watching on YouTube, this guy's changeup is going to determine pretty much how far he goes. It's an interesting pitch mix because it's a slew of them, but really the only plus pitch is his changeup. He's got a fastball, a slider, a changeup, a cutter, a curveball. And that's a pretty deep bag, but all of them are kind of fringy. The changeup I have as a plus pitch, potentially better than that. Fastball plays up a little bit, even though it's 91 to 93, because he comes at you from a low vertical attack angle. So that helps. And also just a little bit of sneaky life on it. The slider has flashed average, and I think could be a good enough big league third pitch if he can command it better. The shape's pretty good. He just doesn't command it great. And then he added this year this cutter, which has not been effective if you look at it from the total sample size, like the opponent batting average. They've hit pretty well against it. But when he locates it, you can see the potential for an average fourth pitch. I also think that he's using this cutter to not be so changeup heavy against lefties, because he throws the changeup 46% of the time against left-handed hitters because he likes it better than any other pitch, understandably so. He's starting to use it more against righties, but I think it just gave him another look. And then he sprinkles in this below average taste breaking curveball. But it's always nice if you don't have a second plus pitch, have a bunch of average pitches or close to it. And that's what Rodriguez has here. He varies his looks. He knows how to pitch. He seems like a guy that can just kind of get outs. We like to compare a lot of people to Javier Assad. This is another guy that's kind of cut from a similar cloth, but Rodriguez has an elite changeup, which can take you very far.
So a couple of follow-ups here on Carlos Rodriguez. Command, you've got a huge disparity, 35 to 50 here. The reason I go here is because his walk numbers are up a walk per 9 at AA this year compared to any other spot in his career. So I feel like you may be a higher grade if he were not in AA with these tack baseballs. I think his command's going to get a lot better without these tack baseballs.
You beat me to it then, because that's basically what was baked into this for me. I probably could go with a 40. It's just I feel weird giving a 40 present command to a guy who's walking
5 per 9.
Because there's a chance that he's also nibbling a little bit, because when the changeup's not there, and that's the problem. And I've even talking to some of the hitters that he's faced in that league, they're like, man, when the changeup's on, he's kind of got you like you have to play to his game. But when the changeup's off, he has to play to your game as the hitter. So when the changeup's not there, hitters feel like that they're in control. When the changeup is there, he's in control. He's in the driver's seat. And I think part of that is a little bit of the command in general, but I do think when the changeup's not there, you see him nibble. And when he's on, I mean, he struck out 11, 12 guys this year. When he's off, he's gotten knocked around a little bit. So I think some of it's attack balls, and then some of it's a little bit of nibbling with confidence. But I really do feel like he's struggling to adjust to the baseball. I was just listening to something our friend Kevin Barral had a great tidbit in a conversation he had with Uribe Perez, and asked Perez why he's not throwing the changeup as much so far in the big leagues. And Uri said, it's such a feel pitch for me, and I'm using a very different baseball now. So I just don't feel totally comfortable throwing the changeup. Rodriguez, changeup guy, it's been there for him, but that could play a part in it as well.
Okay, so that tells me to buy stock in Uri as soon as he starts throwing his changeup more in big league games, because he's got the feel for the changeup, and that adds the best pitch in his arsenal to his arsenal. For Rodriguez, how much do you think the changeup is affected? Do you know how changeups are being affected in the Southern League? Because that is a lower spin pitch than your fastball and slider. I feel like these baseballs help the fastball slider guys way more than they help the fastball changeup guys.
Yeah, it's interesting. I would say it depends on what kind of changeup guy you are. Because the guys that are those side spinning changeups, I think it can benefit them in terms of nastiness, but it can affect you in terms of location. So I think Rodriguez is getting more movement on it, which it's not taking anything away from his changeup for me, because he dominated with the changeup last year. I actually almost think it helps him in terms of my outlook, because I think he's just struggling to land it because it's moving so much. I've seen guys with that kind of spin have a little bit more horizontal movement, but if you look at it, I'm actually comparing it right now, Jack, it's about the same. 17 inches of horizontal last year, 17 inches of horizontal this year. There's a little bit more vertical movement on the changeup. So I just feel like he's been impacted in terms of just the feel for it consistently, because the ball is doing things that it just didn't do as much before across his arsenal. They're all moving a little bit different. So I think this is a kid that's just adjusting to the baseballs. But when he's on, I mean, he has been fantastic. So I think there's a chance for a back end of the rotation starter here. Yeah. I think that this is a kid that knows how to pitch. He varies his looks, as I mentioned. And part of that is the reason why I think he is getting this aggressive assignment as a 21-year-old in double. And I like this pitcher. I do think he's going to be a nice little piece here for the Brewers.
Dude, I can't wait to be done with these stupid chemically tacked conversations.
I was going to say, we probably should have mentioned Justin Jarvis too, right? Because Justin Jarvis, he's 23 and he's pitching well in Double-A. I know that he's seen his stuff tick up big time with the ball, but he's 23 with a 2.54 ERA in Double-A. So Justin Jarvis, probably another name to watch, a guy that's definitely pitching well with these baseballs, and looks like he might be figuring himself out a little bit.
Sure. I'm just done with these baseballs.
Mid-July is what I've been reading and hearing. So hopefully that'll be when we can get out of these conversations about the stupid baseballs. And I know GMs and executives are voicing similar frustrations, which is the irony in all of it.
Yeah.
Number 9, Abner Uribe, a rare reliever in the top 10. And I wouldn't say it's an indictment on the system. I'd say it's more of the upside of Abner Uribe, because this dude has big league closer stuff. Again, for those who are watching on YouTube, look at the slider here that he throws to Naz Nunez. Just ridiculous. He can throw it to lefties and righties because you're going to wave at it if you're a righty. If you're a lefty, that thing might hit you as you swing at it. It's that kind of sharp. His fastball is 99 to 102, 103. The shape isn't as good as you'd expect, but it doesn't really matter because it's just so hard. It got hit harder last year. This year, the shape has been better, and it's had a little bit of this like turbo sync to it, even though it has a four-seam spin. It's really weird. I even reached out to some of my buddies who are catchers in the minor leagues who analyze pitch profiles all the time, and they were saying the fastball movement in terms of what it gets horizontally and vertically is pretty much borderline outlier. So the fastball is a weird shape. He just rips it as hard as he can. I think he would benefit more from having that backspinning carrying fastball, but he's so erratic that I don't know if he can really control it that much in terms of how it spins off his fingers. But put simply, it's an elite fastball. It's an elite slider. The command is non-existent, but it's improved slightly. And if he can even have 30 grade command, he will be a big league reliever, high leverage, and potentially even a closer.
He's a firecracker.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I've gotten down the rabbit hole after you told me to get down the rabbit hole of Abner Uribe. And obviously the fastball and slider are nuts. Like they could both be 75 grade pitches, which is like, when I think about this guy, I think of Brian Abreu with Houston. Abreu is like calm, cool, collected. Like I love watching Abreu throw in high leverage moments for the Astros because he just nuts up and gets outs. I think that's probably like Uribe, but he would like to tick up on that with the fastball. Like Abreu is 99 to 100 with a crazy good slider. Uribe can be 103 with a crazy good slider. So almost like Doval, I guess. But he wears his heart on his sleeve a little bit more than a lot of these high leverage closers.
Yeah, I've been watching a lot of Uribe the last few weeks. I would say the body language on the mound and the way he carries himself is not the best. He's 22. He's going to be 23 in a month. He's, you want your relievers a little crazy in terms of like intensity and fire. But I do think that plays a part into some of the meltdowns is he doesn't get a call. He's very demonstrative. There's definitely some poor body language. That's going to have to be shored up to be a big league reliever. You just got to be able to be more even keel and steady.
Because you're going to get hit at some point. Like
you're going to
have a blown save. How do you respond?
100%. What I will say, though, is he hasn't been tested much in that regard over the last several outings. I think his last 5, he's come in, struck out a pair, and you look at the last 5 innings where there's the last 5 appearances, 9 strikeouts, 2 walks. That's big. That's really big there. So hopefully that's a sign of the command kind of getting better and better for him. His last 3 outings, no walks. That is huge for him. I don't know the last time he's really done that. If he's somebody that walks 12%, 11% of batters, he can get away with that. Yeah. There's a lot of good relievers that walk 12, 11% of batters. 16, 17, 18%, that's going to be a little too high. Fastball command's been pretty good. I'd say fastball control has been pretty good this year. Slider has been tough to locate for him. It could be the baseballs. There could be other things at hand there. I really think that hitters are just not swinging at it because you're going to let him locate the slider 3 times. And if he does that, you tip your cap. I think guys are trying to just sell out for the fastball and hit it. And even then, 44% in zone whiff rate on his heater. It's just ridiculous. If he can tweak that to have a little bit better shape, he could be one of the better relievers in Major League Baseball. So hopefully he can find a way to get a little bit better shape on the fastball. But I think he's already on his way to doing so this year. And averaging 99.5 miles per hour on it is just crazy.
Yep.
Moving on to number 8. And I think this is where the system really kind of shifts to another gear. Or you could maybe make the case that it's a guy after this. But this is someone we've talked about a lot. And I've definitely been disappointed from this year. But you can see flashes. And you can see it potentially coming together. Robert Gasser, left-handed pitching prospect, AAA, just turned 24. It's been an up and down season, even in the early going for Gasser, but I would say the last 2 outings have been his 2 best of the year. He was really good against Charlotte, really good against Jacksonville. Fastball is above average, but plays up from this ridiculously tough 3/4 release point. He hides the ball really well. And from hiding it at that release point, it gets on you quick and it takes off. So even though he's low 90s, as you can see in this video, he's low 90s, but it really is tough to pick up because of the way he stays closed. It's a little bit Trevor Rogers-esque, as we had some people mentioning in the replies when I posted a video of him with that release. And the thing is he should be able to use that to his advantage. It should be a tunneling nightmare for hitters. And it was last year. But his command has been iffy in AAA pretty much since he got bumped up. And really ever since he was traded in that Josh Hader deal from the Padres over to the Brewers. I do wonder, and I know you have your theory on the command here and why he's had some of those command struggles. Part of it is obviously going to just be, hey, the zone's a lot tighter in AAA. Part of it's going to be hitters are more disciplined in AAA. Those two things go together. You're going to walk more hitters. But I do wonder how much confidence he has in the rest of his arsenal. I see a lot of confidence in the fastball. I see a lot of confidence in that cutter, which some will read as a slider. It's a cutter to me. But I don't see much confidence in the other pitches. And even so, the fastball and the cutter just haven't been there command-wise over the duration of this season, though in the last couple starts, they have. Not a coincidence that he has pitched a lot better.
Yeah, he got stung by the long ball for the first time in a long time in Jacksonville, and that's where the runs came from. So you look at like, hey, 7 innings, 4 earned. Hey, that's not one of his best starts of the year. It is because the command was there and he went 7 innings. His best start of the year, without a doubt, was in Charlotte, which is as hitter-friendly a ballpark as you will find, not in the PCL or in that Texas League in AA. Charlotte is a bandbox, and he went 7 shutout innings with 9 Ks and no walks. He was freaking awesome. I want to compare the usage in those 2 starts because, like, 2 best starts of the year. But before I do the usage, real quick, 7 of his first 8 outings, he had a long relief appearance sprinkled in there. So just consider it a start if you want. 7 of his first 8 starts, he walked 3 or more guys. Hasn't done it in his last 3. He walked 1, he walked none, he walked 2. So if he can limit those walks, I feel a lot better about Gasser. The other thing I would feel better about is if he had a consistent mix, and it feels like he's struggling to find a consistent mix.
Yeah.
You said some cutters are reading as sliders. He's got some 4-seamers that read as sinkers and vice versa. I don't know if they're 2 different pitches, but they're being tagged as 2 different pitches. But I'm just going to walk you through usage because he has like a 6-pitch mix, right? And these pitches are anywhere from 25% usage to 10% usage. In that dominating outing against Charlotte, he went in order of most used: cutter, 4-seamer, curveball, changeup, sinker, slider. Last start against Jacksonville: slider, sinker, 4-seamer, curveball, changeup, cutter. There's no correlation there whatsoever.
Yeah.
It's so hard to establish a rhythm when you can't develop like a good plan of attack when it comes to pitch usage. I said, and I kind of stand by this theory. If Gasser was 2 iterations of a fastball and 2 iterations of a slider, so if he was 4-seamer, sinker, cutter, slider, I think he probably has the same ERA that he does right now with 6 pitches. I think like if he can figure out any way to simplify this pitch mix, that could actually bode pretty well for him.
Yeah, so I think you hit it there really well. And to build off of that, what I would do, and again, there's probably more qualified people that are going to be putting their 2 cents in this with Gasser and working with him on this, but I'd phase out the changeup. I watched back the last few starts. That changeup's just not very good. I'd love to see a changeup. We talked about Trevor Rogers and how good his changeup is because of that release point and stuff. I'd love to see him have a changeup. It's just not there for me. I'd rather see him throw that sinker more. I'd rather ditch the changeup for the sinker. That is a legit sinker. That's not like a mistagged pitch. I'm looking at the difference in designation here. The pitches tagged as 4-seamers have 8 inches of horizontal. The pitches tagged as 2-seamers or sinkers have 16 inches of horizontal. So that's legitimate. Four-seamer plays up in the top of the zone from that release point. We know that. That's been his bread and butter. And also for clarification for those that are following along on video, I have his slider. I know it's confusing. His slider, like that, what's labeled in what would it be, Baseball Savant as a slider, or in the portal. To me, that's a curveball based on the shape. And the pitches that are registered as a slider it's a cutter. Think about it. He throws a fastball at 92, and his slider's 88. That's a cutter, and it's short, and he commands it well. It moves like a cutter. And some of the other systems I've looked at, I think TrackMan has it as a cutter. But that aside, the cutter is a really effective pitch from that release point. And we saw Jamie Moyer make a living off of that, throwing him at 83, 82 at age 44. He throws it at 88. That's a pitch that can be a force to both lefties and righties. Fastball will tunnel off of that. And then you've got more sweep with the breaking ball. It's a slurvier breaking ball. I think the two fastballs, the slider and the cutter, I agree with you. That 4-pitch mix, he throws more strikes. He has a little bit better of a sequence and a feel on what he's doing. And I think he will be a very solid pitcher with that. Phase out your worst pitch, the changeup. Have better command with the pitches that you're more comfortable with. And let your four-seamer eat a little bit more. Have more confidence in it. And I think that's exactly what he's been doing. And it's been cutter, four-seamer a lot more over the last 4 starts. I think if he tweaks his usage, and the command continues to kind of go along with that, he could be a number 4 starter. I think he's more likely an average 5 starter, but I think there's a chance that he could be an average 4 starter.
Yeah, I mean, we saw it, right? In that deal with San Diego, we totally saw that he had the chance to be a 4 or a 3. Like, we were thinking 3, right? Because the fastball was so freaking good last year. So I would love to see him still be a 3. I think if he honestly hammers out the command thing and those like 3-4 walk outings are a thing of the past, he could be in the Brewers rotation in July because they're without Woodruff and they're dealing with so many other issues. Like the Ashby injury hurt really bad.
Absolutely. And the guy that can locate the cutter from a tough release point, I fall in love with those type of dudes and those type of pitchers. I'm really excited to see if he can continue this momentum, but I'm definitely encouraged by what we've seen the last few starts.
Yeah.
Moving on to number 7. This was a tough guy to rank because the bat is so good. The glove is pretty non-existent. And the bat has kind of changed in terms of the way that we look at it. Tyler Black checks in at number 7. And power-wise, he's added juice. He was viewed as more of a hit over power guy in the past. And with this big leg kick, you'd expect there to be more whiff. There's really not. He's been a great bat to ball guy at the lower levels. He's whiffing more this year, as everybody is at that level, but he's also walking way more, and he's also hitting the ball way harder. 104 mile per hour, 90th percentile exit velocity is a big jump for him. 863 OPS is good. The approach is great. He's chasing at an 18% clip. So there is more whiff, but with that has come more power, more patience, and more lifting the ball in the air. 7 home runs this year is way, way more pace-wise than we've seen from any other year from him. I think that's already the most he's had in a single season, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
He was 22. He'll be 23 by around the All-Star break or a little bit after that. The problem is he doesn't have a position. They tried him in center last year. He fractured his scapula laying out and already looked kind of shaky out there. His arm's below average. They've tried him at second. He didn't look great there. They now have him at third. I don't think he can play there. I think he's a third baseman / first, or excuse me, I think he's a left fielder. Like that's where I'd like to see him. Even though the arm's fringy, I think you can hide him in left or he can play first. And I think the bat could carry enough weight to play first, but it would put more pressure on his bat. Ultimately, I'd like to see him try second again or play left, but I don't know why they're keeping him at third. Regardless, the bat is where Tyler Black is going to be able to carry himself to the big leagues.
And he'd be a short first baseman too. And like, I only want short first baseman if the power is prodigious. You know what I mean? Like it kind of fits into that bucket. I would like if he figured out second base or left field, just from a, stereotypical second base or left field standpoint. because this guy's strong as shit, man. Like, he's got a frame on him, and he's using that frame right now. You mentioned 7 homers. Yes, the most by 3 of any other level that he's had in professional stops. He had 7 his freshman year at Wright State. He had 13 his junior year at Wright State. He's using wood, and he's going to pass up his junior year total. He's played, 44 games so far. He's got 7. He had 13 and 48 games at Wright State.
He just has 3 triples.
Yeah, triples is best. The thing that jumps out to me, 26 for 30 in the stolen base department.
That was the last wrinkle I was going to add. He's, I think, hit the weight room with his lower half. Victor Mesa Jr. was talking about that on the podcast, about how he was really focusing on adding strength that way and ended up getting faster. I don't know if that was a concerted effort to get faster and get quicker, but Tyler Black looks quicker and also looks way more confident on the base paths. He's efficient and aggressive on there. That really does help take a little bit of pressure off of the bat. At least if he doesn't have a position, he's a factor on the base paths and he walks. That does really help the profile.
This is a very high floor bat.
Mm-hmm.
Very high floor.
It's just they're going to need to find a position for him. I think it's interesting that he's exclusively played third this year, so they're going to keep trying that. I really don't like third for him with the arm. I do think that his footwork has gotten better. Clearly, it's gotten better on the bases. I think that's made its way to the field as well. Let's see some second again. I would like to see some more action at second base. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, I was just going to say, like, I'm looking at the big club too. And what's the plan here? Like, Luis Urias, I think, has 2 years of arbitration left. Adames, they could ID as an extension candidate. They may want Willie Adames in a Brewers uniform for a long time at short. You got Terang playing second, although you think, and I think Terang is a good shortstop. So if Adames does walk, then Terang could play short, or they could.
But he has been struggling.
Yeah, like, I don't know. I think they could look at it and say, okay, we're probably not going to extend Urias. So in 2 years, we're going to need a third baseman. Jace Peterson already walked. Maybe this is where he slides in.
That's an excellent point also, because the Brewers, I think they're very confident that Tyler Black is going to be a big league bat. They look at the outfield situation. They don't need another outfielder right now. And it's best for the Brewers organization if Tyler Black can play third base. So from that lens, that does make sense to keep trying him there. I hope he can develop into an average defender there. I wouldn't say it's impossible, but I think it's very unlikely. So we'll see. But maybe he can at least be a utility guy in the respect that he might not be good anywhere, but he's passable at a bunch of different places, and the bat carries.
Gotcha.
We move on to number 6. This was a guy that I think I came away most impressed with when I did the dive. Like, going in where I was kind of labeling him versus where I came out after watching all of the video I could possibly watch. I saw him a little bit in person on the Cape, but had not seen him live since he's gone pro. The glove of Eric Brown Jr. has gotten so much better. And just across the board, he looks like a really well-rounded player. First round pick, 27th overall in 2022. And I mean, the field of hit is spectacular, which is wild because, again, going to refer to the video here. Look at where his hands start. Yeah. He actually starts with his hands in front of his face and the barrel of the bat in front of the brim of his helmet. Slowly drags his hands back to kind of create that rubber band, that tension as he sinks into his back leg. And it works. You can't refute it because 90% zone contact. He's hitting for average. The power is not there, and that's going to be the biggest question. How much juice is in there? 100 mile per hour, 90th percentile exit velocity. But when you have a plus hit tool, the defense at short really impressed me. I thought he might be average there, slightly above. His arm is average, but his footwork's incredible. His actions are great. He gets the ball out so quick that it takes some pressure off of the arm, and he's comfortable throwing from every single angle. I mean, this guy's really confident. He will whip it down low. He is super, super, super confident in the field, and also another guy that has just leveled up the base stealing. He is a factor on the base paths, actually a menace at this point on the base paths. It's average or better tools across the board except for the power, and I think you can hope for average power here as he continues to fill out a little bit.
So right now, he's putting up the lowest OBP that he's had in any stop in his career. Any year in college, not on the Cape, 2 spots last year, regardless of games played. Like, I'm even talking the ACL for 4 games. This year, The lowest OBP of any stop in his post-high school career, 367. That's a really good low point in OBP.
Yeah.
The other one is, aside from Katuit, when he hit 282 with a 375 OBP, Eric Brown has the lowest difference between batting average and OBP of his career, 266 to 367. So at his quote-unquote worst, he's going to have an 100-point jump from batting average to OBP, and he's not going to hit 220. So you feel good about it. Other thing that jumps out, this dude is 41 for 45 in stolen bases in professional baseball. Yes, the setup is weird, but he walks a lot. He takes a lot of pitches after that barrel comes from in front of his head to his back shoulder. And when he does get on base, he's a threat to go. You told me to dive farther into Eric Brown Jr., and the thing that I took away from Eric Brown was this guy's just really fun to watch play baseball. And I think baseball needs more of those guys. Weird 100%. Stance. Kids are going to want to mimic his stance in the backyard. He runs really well. He can play the field like really well, I think. And I mean, this guy has, just enough impact to be a fun guy when he's in the batter's box.
It's funny. I think now we're going to compare all these types of guys to Bryce Terang, but this is also very similar. Not as elite defensively, but really good. If you move Brown, because I think a lot of people looked at Brown as a candidate to move to second, he'd be a Gold Glove contender, I think, at second. He's a good shortstop. And, if you have a better bat there, if Adames gets extended, obviously you defer to the better bat and he plays second. But Brown could play third. The arm, I think, is good enough. The approach is great, as you mentioned. 11% walk rate this year, 20% chase rate. He's going to get on base. When you pair a good approach with 90% zone contact, that takes a lot of pressure off of the power tool too. And it's not helpless. It's not like he's a 30 power guy, like someone we're about to get to. But the feel to hit is good enough, and there's enough juice where he can go gap to gap. And as you see at this home run off of Cade Horton, the pull side power is sneaky average. That might be just enough. But if he can tap into average power, I think this guy's a high probability big leaguer because of all of the other complementary tools. And you can't really poke a hole in his game otherwise. So I'm excited about Brown. I'd like to see him hit the ball a bit harder, but he gets the ball in the air enough. He finds the gaps. He doesn't strike out, and he walks a ton, and he steals bags. That's a really fun and safe profile for a 22-year-old in high A, and I think he should be up in double relatively soon.
Yep.
Next up is a strong top 100 update candidate, a guy that we're hearing more and more about. A lot of people are starting to get excited about him. Luis Lara, outfielder in low A. He was a $1.1 million international free agent, 18 years old, and he is putting up good numbers in low A. I just really like watching this guy, and it seems like the Brewers do a good job of finding these ahead of their years prospects that they can just aggressively assign. Luis Lara, definitely well below average power, but it's not as ridiculous. It's not 20. It's not as ridiculously low as you'd expect from a 5'9", 18-year-old. I do think he can grow into potentially 40 grade power, which is going to be more than enough for him because his bat to ball skills are insane for an 18-year-old in full season ball. 92% zone contact, 17% chase rate. To have that approach already as a switch hitting 18-year-old in low A is stupid. His instincts are phenomenal. I love watching this guy play the game. He is so comfortable in center field. I think he can be a plus defender out there. He's an above average runner. So I don't know if base stealing is going to be a major part of his game because it's really closer to average than plus. But his jumps, his reads, his routes are great in center. I think he sticks there. He has a great arm for a 5'9", 155-pound guy, 160-pound guy. And I do think that there's enough juice to find the gap similar to Eric Brown. But this dude's hitting 302, 436, 349 as an 18-year-old in low A, Jack, as a switch hitter in center field every day.
Yeah, I like that he's not selling out. Like he's doing what he can do with his frame as an 18-year-old. And I mean, you've got 5'9", 160 here as the listed weight. Like I truly think that's the listed height and weight, 5'9", 160. He's a small guy, but I don't care if you're hitting this well. You're not striking out at all and you're walking enough. Now, I would like for him to run a little bit. He's a very low efficiency base stealer.
Yeah.
I would like for him to run a little bit better or not run at all. But he's been statistically good in center field. I mean, you've seen the reads a lot more than I have. You've seen the jumps a lot more than I have. But it's the hit tool that jumps out with him. And like, if he's going to be this flawless of an offensive profile without power, if you're looking at a leadoff guy, I mean, this is kind of it.
Throwback player, but I do think that there's enough bat speed here. The bat speed's impressive to me, where he could sneak out a few home runs a year and be that kind of guy that just has enough where you have to think about it. 100 mile per hour, 90th percentile is not bad. He's 18. You figure he's going to grow in to a little bit more muscle, a little bit more strength, and tap into just a little bit more power. But what stands out is 24 walks, 13 strikeouts.
Yeah,
that's crazy. He sprays the ball all over the field. He makes up for the lack of juice with the ability to just consistently hit line drives. His line drive rate's ridiculous, doesn't whiff. I don't know the last time I've seen an 18-year-old with 92% zone contact through 130 plate appearances in full season ball. This is a really exciting talent. And while it might not be off the charts potential with tools off, going crazy, staying power in center, switch hitter with a potential 70 grade hit tool, maybe even a little slightly above that, like sign me up for that. I'm a big fan of Luis Suara. Realize we got to update the little thing there. He's a switch hitter. Good swing from both sides too. Very consistent from both sides. Laura is going to be a guy that I think you'll see jumping onto a lot of top 100 lists soon. Number 4, another just crazy arm that I think is not getting enough attention, and definitely the highest upside arm in the system by a wide margin, the best arm in the system by a good margin. Jacob Mizorowski, right-handed pitching prospect, just got promoted to high A, which is good timing. We've talked about him a little bit already. Is somebody that is right on the cusp of a potential major breakout. And I got to reference the video again for those folks on YouTube. And if you're listening and you can click the article, do it right now and watch this Mizorowski fastball. Holy crap. It just takes off. He's 6'7", and he sits in the upper 90s with his fastball up to 102. And it's from a low release point for such a tall guy. At 6'7", he gets it pretty low down there and allows the fastball to just take off out of his hand. He was a second-round pick in 2021, over slot guy. Fastball, easy 70. Slider is nasty. Just bite late, sharp in the 90 to 92 range. And then a mid-80s power curve that flashes plus as well. And he mixes in the occasional changeup. Mizorowski's nasty, Jack.
So shit's going to move like a blitz ball. When you're built like that, when you're 6'7", when you're lanky, and when you have that sort of crazy delivery, right? Like he almost goes inverted W to just like flailing at the hitter. I have no idea if I was in the batter's box, if I could pick up when the ball is coming out of his hand, because he's so long. It's so unorthodox. I feel like this fastball, especially if it's 99, sitting 98, 99, is just on you right away. The swing decisions are impossible. And you see it here with his low A lefty bat. Like, I mean, he is so late to get a hack off on this fastball. That's going to be a common look. My worry is I feel like this guy may come out of himself really quickly. You know what I mean? Like, I think that he could have some outings where he doesn't have a landing spot and he doesn't make it out of the first inning because it's such a complex, high effort delivery and the pitches move like blitzball.
Yeah.
But when it's on, it's, oh my gosh, you're on right now.
And that's the thing. If the Brewers can get him to the point where the command, I mean, you look at the command, we've got him at 30 grade right now. If he can develop average command, this kid could be a frontline kind of arm with average command. It's Dylan Cease-esque with average command.
Yeah.
So that fastball, to be able to get that kind of low vertical attack angle, I can't get over that at 6'7", really allows it to play up too. And I think that fastball is going to be a big whiff pitch at every single level in the upper 90s with the extension that he gets to. The combination of low release, extension, and velocity could make that pitch a borderline 80 if he commands it better. And then the two breaking balls can just be devastating. And they're different enough speeds. You get that hard slider in the low 90s and then that power curve in the mid 80s. It's a glass now type of arsenal. which is interesting too. And I think that's not a horrible comp either in terms of if it all clicks and it all comes together. You can see even from the clip, though, he's very erratic. You talk about the landing spot. It's inconsistent. He's got very long levers. There's a lot to control here. Yeah. But there's been flashes already of him controlling it. His second to last start in low A against Down East, 5 innings, no hits, no walks, 1 hit by pitch, 9 Ks. That's what that's in there. It's in there.
I love that you bring up Glasnow because I think that's a guy that he can learn a lot from, because Glasnow is kind of the gold standard of repeatable mechanics for a 6'7", 6'8" guy with really long limbs. Yeah. Glasnow is like, he's the perfect candidate to not have any idea where his arms and legs are going because he's built like that.
But
he does. And that's why he's a Cy Young candidate whenever he's healthy. So I do hope that Mizorowski can find some simplicity in the delivery, but I'm also okay if he doesn't, because it's what makes him so unique, and it's what makes 101 play up to probably feel like 106 or 107.
It's got to feel it's just unfair to those low A hitters.
Unfair.
One of my favorite prospects in baseball, and a guy that is we've talked about a ton and is really looking good in double. Jefferson Carroll, catcher in Double A. He has been awesome in every facet. I love every aspect of this guy's game, minus maybe the approach. That could be better. He's 20 in the Southern League right now, and he's also hitting 262 with a 500 slug, so it's kind of hard to tell him to hone it in and swing less. He is chasing at a 44% clip, but he's mashing baseballs. Defensively, he looks as advertised. The receiving is fantastic. The arm is good. He's kept the run game pretty well in check. And he looks like one of the more well-rounded catchers now in the minor leagues. But the bat, he has not really missed a step here as he jumps into this difficult league as a 20-year-old. The power's there. He's putting bat on ball. 84% zone contact for such a free swinger is pretty crazy. And he's hitting the ball hard. Like, this is one of the better catching prospects in baseball now. And we've been talking about him since I got to see him in the Arizona Fall League and really fell in love. This is just a great all-around catcher.
Who's the better Carroll? Jefferson or Edgar? Actually, Jefferson, according to Baseball Reference. Jefferson Carroll.
Jefferson. Man, I think Jefferson Carroll is the more well-rounded catcher. Edgar is a better bat, I think, long term, at least bat to ball wise. I'm gonna go with Jefferson Carroll. I think Jefferson's a better Carroll.
Okay.
Because of the glove, it's just so good.
Yeah, the clips that you were sending me of Carroll receiving and throwing to second base, I was like, holy hell, this guy's so advanced. You've got a 2025 ETA. William Contreras is there through 2024. You think that Carroll could be, and I don't think they would move him, but do you think he could be a guy that, almost beats that 2025 ETA?
Yes.
Or no?
Yes.
Yeah.
That 2025 ETA I made at the beginning of the season. And I copy and pasted those, the height, weight, size, all the things that don't change. I put that into the Brewers top 10 here. That is a good catch because he's already performing in double. Why wouldn't you want to see him in triple relatively soon for all of the reasons that we've been talking about with that Southern League? And he's aggressive, but he's hitting everything. So I'd like to see him in a place where you can encourage him to be a little bit less aggressive with the tighter strike zone and challenge him to work with more advanced pitching and better arms.
Yeah, and the internal conversations would probably give us a better idea of like how long he's going to be in double. I think you got to ask some of his pitchers on that staff in Biloxi, like how he's doing, how their interactions have been, like how he calls games, that type of thing, before you give him the bump up. So I wouldn't be shocked if he's there for actually a couple more months. I've realized you just got to work so slowly with catchers, man. Yeah. Like it was jarring how quickly Edgar Carroll got to double for LA. But with catchers, like it feels station to station. So, while it feels encouraged that he may get the bump to triple, it may not be necessarily imminent.
Yeah. 33% % caught stealing rate, very solid. Because there's obviously more factors at hand. Some pitchers on that staff are slow. I can confirm to home plate. So he looks good there. Edgar Carroll, from what I was told too, he got bumped up because they loved the coaching staff for him there in Rocket City and wanted to challenge him. Jefferson is solidifying himself, especially as some of the other catchers graduate, as one of the best catching prospects in the game. And I really do believe that this guy is going to be. We said in the beginning of the year that he would be on every top 100 list by middle of the season. I think he is now, and I'm going to take it a step further. I think he'll be top 50 on everybody's list by the end of the season.
Whoa, okay.
I really do believe that. Gotta calm down on the approach a little bit. That's just the one thing.
Yeah.
Go to number 2, the guy that's unfortunately on the shelf, but should be back, I think, very, very soon. Sal Frelick. He's been hurt. What was the injury again? I'm drawing a blank on what the injury was, but it shouldn't be much longer. I don't know if he was trying to play through it or what it was, because he was not playing to the level that we are accustomed to of Sal Frelick. And you can't say, oh, it's because of triple. He was dominating triple last year. And actually, right before the injury, he had a 3-for-5 game with 2 doubles. So it's unfortunate timing there. He's been out since May 18th, but should be back relatively soon. One of the safer bats, we've talked about him a ton on here, is 70 hit, 70 run, good defense, and enough juice. That's the thing. Is I think people look at him, the way he hits, his frame and all that stuff, and say, oh, this is a non-existent power guy. He will sneak enough home runs out of the yard. He had 11 last year. Yes, some came in a hitter-friendly Biloxi, but plenty of extra base hits in a very pitcher-friendly Nashville. And then when he gets to the big leagues, it'll be back to more hitter-friendly. I think he's got enough power to mix in 8 to 10 home runs potentially, which is more than enough. Plenty of doubles. And the field of hit is just spectacular. 88% zone contact that got above the 90 mark once he got to triple. Great approach. I think he's going to keep getting better in the stolen base department, but the dude flies. He's just such a fun player.
So 6 to 8 weeks, thumb surgery, a torn ligament in his thumb. He was hurt on April 18.
Oh, so, April, excuse me.
He should be he should be starting a rehab probably in a week, and that rehab should probably last a week, and then he'll be back to AAA in 2. Brutal coincidence. I didn't realize this, that Frelick hurt his thumb the same night that Garrett Mitchell separated his shoulder.
Oh, what a tough day.
Yeah, that's a brutal day for the Brewers when you look at this gluttony of outfield depth and 2 of them go down on the same night, probably within an hour of each other. But Frelick, yeah, so it's a thumb thing. I wouldn't worry about it, and he'll be back in 2 weeks. Slow start, 15 games. It was cold outside. Don't place much stock in that whatsoever. Frelick is like, okay, so you look at this young trio of outfielders, right? Weimer, high volatility, tons of pop, tons of speed, can swing and miss a billion times over the course of a week, but then can be awesome over the course of a week. Sal Frelick is like Quan, like it's going to be the same thing every game. Garrett Mitchell's somewhere in between. Mm-hmm. Having all 3 of those guys in a turnstile with Christian Yelich holding down left field, like, that's fun as hell.
Super fun. And the number 1 guy waiting in the wings here.
Yeah.
Swinging strike rate of 7%. Like, he's not even really fouling off pitches he should be hitting. Like, he squares balls up. He really does. He can spoil, and he's good at that. The only thing I would like to see get a little bit better with him, and I think this is what we saw, maybe a little bit of the struggles were this year. He demolishes fastballs. He has no problem. He hit nearly 400 against fastballs last year. So they started spinning him more and more and more. And with his flat swing, which is a big reason why he makes so much contact, and I'm not saying change your swing plane, but with the flat swing, it can get hard to lift breaking balls, sliders, changeups, curveballs. And last year, 60% ground ball rate on secondary stuff, and he hit 228 against secondary stuff. So you can make a living crushing fastballs and being slightly below average against secondary stuff, especially when you're as fast as he is. But that's something I'd like to see, maybe letting the secondary stuff travel a bit more, being able to use the whole field a bit more. And I think he had the tendency to roll over a bit too much on the secondary stuff, and they were spinning him a bit harder and a bit more frequently in the early going of this year. But this dude slugged 475 last year, Jack.
Yeah.
With that kind of bat to ball skills, 400 on base, slugged 475. he's going to hit a lot of doubles, a lot of triples, and just enough home runs, I think, to be able to produce enough of a slugging impact where he's not just all slap compared
Right.
to what some people might expect.
Yes. No, I mean, like, I think a lot of people, when they see Sal Frelick, when they see the build and when they see, just the typical counting numbers, you may expect, he's going to slug 350. He's a singles hitter. I don't think he's a 500 slug guy or a 475 slug guy at the big league level, but I think he can be a 400 to 420 slug guy at the big league level.
Which with everything else you're getting, that's a great outcome. That'll be a really good player consistently.
Yeah.
Number 1, no suspense here. There's a guy that I think has as much excitement around him as any prospect in baseball, especially after what he did last year. And he early in this year hit this walk-off that was just a total laser, got out in half a second in Biloxi. Jackson Chourio, outfielder at the AA level. Talk about an aggressive assignment, almost unprecedented to see someone as young as Chourio at the AA level. He was 18 at the start of the year and was 18 last year when he got a cup of coffee at the AA spot. Yeah. Aggressive, and that's been part of the issue for him. I can't imagine being so young and also having to deal with, the testing situation in the Southern League, and also just having to deal with going to AA period as a just about to be 19-year-old. He's holding his own though. So far this year, 251, 305, 419 slash line. But you've seen the flashes, 8 home runs. A big reason why I think the OPS has been knocked is he's not walking, and that's okay, but he's not striking out that much. A 24% strikeout rate for a free swinging power bat at the AA level at 19 is not bad. The approach, I think, is only going to get better because he's so quick to the ball. He has more time to make decisions. I do think that the approach will steadily get better. And there is just the challenges that come with every fastball having more carry in this league right now. Chase rates on fastballs are up across the board in this league. 724 OPS in the Southern League is above average. So to be above average offensively at his age, I think is impressive. I don't look at him any differently than I did going into the year in terms of a top 10 prospect in the game with, you could say, quote unquote, struggles in the early going. I think he's already showing us a lot of what he is capable of.
Cool. Yeah, man. I mean, I don't have much to add on Chourio. I can tell you that based on the narrative around the industry, you would have thought this guy had a 1,500 OPS last year as an 18-year-old. I think that he was overblown a little bit.
Yes, I agree with that.
But he's stupidly talented. So that's the thing, man. Like when you have a guy this young with this much power, this much speed, and this much, I guess, comfort defensively, you can dare to dream, and you can dream on some serious things. I'm not going to stamp and say Chourio's a 20-year-old big leaguer that's going to hit the ground running like Ellie De La Cruz has, because I don't think he will. But he is an incredibly impressive guy that is a very young 19 years old that's handling AA with blitz balls very well.
I agree. And that was the one thing when we heard conversation about Chourio, it was like, oh, could he be baseball's next top prospect? A lot of people were saying he will be baseball's next top prospect. Like, I have James Wood, Jackson Holiday. I think I'd even go Marcelo Meyer.
Because the results are better. That's the thing. Like, obviously what he's doing at such a young age is impressive, but it's a 900 OPS. Like, let's not get too ahead of ourselves.
I think people got very excited because you look at a player that, if it all clicks, it's 70 speed, 70 power, and above average feel to hit. That's crazy. 107 mile per hour, 90th percentile for his age is off the charts. So he's a data darling hitter. We talk about that as pitchers. He's a data darling hitter. His potential is perennial all-star. It's Acuna-esque. So for that reason, I think people got very excited. And that would probably be the comp is something along the lines of Acuna ceiling. But also Acuna was knocking on the door of the big league spot, pretty soon at this age, which is crazy. So I think he's a notch below those generational guys, but he's clearly one of the 65 plus future value prospects in the game, which there's only about 7-8 of those that we're going to rank. So he's definitely a top 10 guy for me, but he's not that generational talent type of guy. The glove, while good, I don't know if it's as elite in center field as some may have hoped, but the power has just really impressed me this year. To already be producing a 107 mile per hour, 90th percentile, to already be hitting balls 111 miles an hour what's this guy going to look like when he's all physically matured?
It looked like
What
Acuna.
is his offensive ceiling?
Acuna.
Yeah. And I think that's the comp. 83% zone contact is great in this league as well for him. Really excited to see Chourio continue. And I'm really interested to see how he adjusts as the year goes on, because if that approach gets a little bit better, I think we could see an explosion from him in the second half. That'll do it for this Milwaukee Brewers farm system rundown. Reminder, you can check everything out in the write-ups in the link in the podcast description. If you're watching on YouTube, please subscribe to the channel. Look out for more content very soon. If you're listening, please leave a rating. Help us grow the show. Would really appreciate it. We'll be back with more Team Top 10 soon. Top 100 update coming very soon, and more conversations around the minor leagues. As always, thank you for listening. Look forward to talking prospects with you early next week.